Welcome to the Whiskey Vault. I'm Daniel Whittington, Chancellor of Wizard Academy and Whiskey Marketing School. We're going to drink some Irish whiskey today that I'm really excited to try. And we're going to talk about AI with this premise. AI is a terrible writer, but it is a great writing partner. Also good at a lot of other weird things. And I know I'm venturing into weird territory, but I have an opinion about AI, and it showed up in a dozen conversations for me in the last 2 weeks, and so I thought, screw it, I'm just going to shoot a video. Right now, everyone around AI who's not using it and excited about it and testing its boundaries is freaking out about the death of all writing and the death of content creation, especially high school teachers and educators. Because AI solved that, and so humans are useless now. And I'm hearing actual people go, well, you don't need writers and ad writers anymore. We got AI to write all of our ads, and it's way better than all the ad writers. Well, unfortunately, that might be true. That doesn't make AI a good ad writer. As usual, these are bullshit claims made from fear, from a place of fear, by people who almost always tend to predict the death of all things in the face of new, amazing technology, whether it's from fear or from overly enthusiastic hope. The reason, and sometimes they're right, by the way, just every once in a while. The industrial age did pretty much completely wipe out blacksmithing as a trade, right? So it's like sometimes it's real, but mostly it's over-exaggerated. Music has already faced this multiple times, which is probably why I have this perspective. In the music industry, when we hit digital instrumentation and the ability to recreate digitally the sound of instruments, there was a whole vanguard of people who were like, oh my God, pretty soon musicians will be out of work because they won't need real musicians anymore. They'll have digital. They can just recreate anything they want. And that's the death of the music industry. And then there are other people who were like, yeah, we don't need to work with musicians. We're DJ. We can make whatever we want now. Like Moby. No, I'm just kidding. Moby worked with real musicians. Anyway, you see both people going like, everything is over. And of course, that is absolutely not what happened. Instead, what happened is digital became a tool set in a musician's bag. And all of a sudden, musicians were capable of doing things that they were never capable of doing before, and creating things that were not possible before, but now they could single-handedly do. And it opened up this huge era of creation and creativity in the music industry. Now, digital wipe out the business model of the music industry, and we're still trying to figure that out. That's fair. But it didn't kill musicians, right? Remember when the Kindle came out and there was a whole bunch of people going like, pretty soon there will never be a paper book ever again. I remember that vividly, right? So are we done with paper books? No, not at all. Instead, what happened is it became a tool in a reader's bag who, if you read really fast like I do, and you want to travel for a week somewhere, you don't want to carry 6 books on a plane. It's a pain in the ass, right? But if you have a Kindle, you're good. But at home, I still read real books, and it turns out that's what a lot of people do, right? Textbooks and reference books are still mostly physical, but the digital aspect of reading became a tool for people, as did audio books, right? It just became one more asset for readers. It also completely revolutionized the publishing industry and gave us access to a whole era of authors that the original historic publishing group would never have let us see. We get to hear and read authors that self-publish and self-promote, and we get introduced to them through ways we would never have been able to meet them otherwise, and that's an amazing thing. So what about AI? And why do I say, let's calm the down and have a little hope here. But first I'm going to drink Boann whiskey. Now, Boann Distillery is the one that did the Whistler line, if I'm not mistaken, with all the 18 million versions of finishings. But this, I saw on the shelf when I was shopping the other day, this is their whiskey. Their distilled, single pot still Irish whiskey finished in triple distilled and aged Madeira cask. And this is what's really cool. They went full craft nerd. And I'm going to pull the sheet over here because it's so freaking nerdy, I didn't want to miss any part of it. So first they have these copper stills that they created. Oh man, this smells so good. They have these copper stills that they created that they're really excited about, and it has some kind of like nanotechnology that basically alters the copper surface, that the spirit, and it's like they said like a 6 times increase in copper interaction on their distilled spirits. This was originally aged in Brown-Forman barrels, and I mean, this is how much information we get from these guys. And then 200-liter barrels, and heavy char, and then their mash bill is malted barley, unmalted barley, pot still, right? Oats and rye, which is a very historic mash bill. Very cool. And all the grains are Irish and grown local. And then they collaborated with a famous Madeira house, Justino's, and they sourced Tinta Negro from 1998 and 2000, Boann 1999, and Cercial 1999, 2000, 2006 Madeira Colheita wine single varietals barrels. And they took those barrels and they filled them with their Irish pot still whiskey. Casks were 350-liter cognac casks originally, and then the Madeiras went into them. The Madeira that went into them ranged from sweet to medium to dry. And then they blended into this product. How cool is that they share all of that information? And the nose, very much what I'm experiencing as Madeira nose. Deep, sweet fruit, barley funk. There's a slight grain funk to this. I feel like it's pretty young. I mean, it's at least 3 because legally it has to be, but I couldn't find out how old it was anywhere. But the fact that there's still some grain presence makes me feel like it's kind of young. And the Madeira is heavy-handed and very present and front-facing. But I like every Madeira whiskey I've ever tried, so that's fun for me. There is a Madeira to me, and I am going to do a whole video comparing a Madeira with a Madeira cask whiskey. But the Madeira finishes that I experience tend to be this weird mix of a really, really fruit-forward, sherry-like direction, but like Oloroso almondy, but also this sort of like dank, musty, dense sweetness, and I really love it. And I'm getting that on this, along with a lot of grain. It's soft. I wish it was a little bit higher, but actually it's 47. It's drinking really soft for 47. Really soft. Like the sugars are just coating my mouth. It's good though. There's a little bit of a sparkle at the end, but it is super heavy-handed jam spread across a biscuit or a shortbread cookie, right? Heavy pastry, heavy jam, slight vanilla, little bit of tart graininess at the end of the aftertaste. It's very interesting. I love how transparent they're being. I can't wait to see how this keeps progressing as the distillery progresses. That's really fun. Okay, so AI. Anyone who has played around with AI knows that it does a mediocre to job of writing when it's used generically. So if you just say, AI, ChatGPT, write me this thing, what you get is cookie cutter bullshit. And sometimes it does really great writing when it is heavily prompted, heavily edited, heavily altered, and heavily interacted with someone who knows how to prompt it correctly and how to keep pushing at it until it feeds you what you're looking for. But it lacks one thing that makes all life magical, no matter what you do with it, and that is flaws. And this was the same problem with the music industry and digital instruments. The thing that they lacked is flaws. They're too perfect. As a matter of fact, they're so perfect, there was a button in the early days of really great drum programming when they got it into like Pro Tools, and at the time I was using early Reaper, and there was a drum program that you could like lay down a drum track and then click a button and it would say, make it natural. And what it meant was that it would move all the drum bits slightly off the down beats so it felt like a real drummer playing. And so basically you had a button that said, hey, drum program, it up. And make it sound like a person did it. And it didn't work, but it still felt too stiff and too like, So AI lacks flaws. Now, I mean, it's flawed in the way that it's writing sometimes, but it lacks the human element of flawed, shortened sentences, sometimes bad grammar, sometimes incomplete thought. It's too freaking perfect. Flaws are the signal to our brain when we experience something that what we're dealing with is human in nature, as opposed to created or too perfect. This is why Uncanny Valley, if you know what that is, Uncanny Valley in film is when they get the digital recreation of a human being or a creature so perfect, but not enough that you can't tell it's not digital, or you can't tell it's digital, and so it's really creepy, right? It's why Polar Express didn't do so well in theaters, right? It's called the Uncanny Valley. It's close enough to human, but we can tell it's not, and it's wrong. So AI, is it going to change a lot of things in our future? Absolutely. And like the music industry and books and industrial revolution, I wouldn't trust anybody who predicts exactly how. We're all still figuring it out. And we're all still learning. But it's at its most powerful when it's a tool. Now, I use AI daily, especially to fix things like make me more, Oxford style guide correct, because I tend to write real sloppy. But the only time I've truly seen it do something amazing was when it was being so heavily handled by a human being that it was effectively just a tool in the tool belt anyway, right? Ignore the doomsayers. Doomsayers like to pretend that they have superior knowledge, and that's why they're talking about doom and gloom. And then the people who say, guys, it's going to be okay, don't worry, the doomsayers are like, well, you can't trust them because they are either aren't truly educated on the reality of the situation or they're naive, right? For some reason, people like to think negativity and terror and fear is more trustworthy and more real. And remember, I did a whole video on this, right? And I don't agree with that. I think we do need checks and balances, and I think there are really, really smart people working on that. I'm not one of them. But right now, use it. It's an amazing tool when it's used as a tool. And when it's at its most valuable is when it's handling the knucklehead that doesn't need a human but is mindless and repetitive. And it frees you up to do the more human things as your time is handed back to you by this tool. When used like that, there's hope. So have some hope. And I'm really glad you're here. Cheers. Hey guys, just a reminder, at the end of this week, it's dry week. That means Friday, May 2nd through Friday, May 9th, noon to noon. There will be a Friday episode this Friday, and then there will be no episodes next week, and we will see you on the other side. Dry week for us is a chance to check in, take a break from consuming alcohol, kind of get a reset, and make sure that we are treating alcohol with the carefulness that it deserves.